Hi, and welcome to the Swan Effect Mums Coffee and Chat podcast. This week, I'm joined by Kat. And also, if you're watching on my YouTube video, I'm also joined by my youngest, Veronica, who hasn't had her nap. So hopefully she won't make too much noise. I'm really sorry. This is what happens when you're a mum and things don't always go to plan. So yeah, hopefully she'll just be really occupied with all this and be quiet. You gonna say hello? Hello. So this week we are talking about, and I can never pronounce this properly, precipitous labour. And that is basically, from what I gather, extremely quick labour. Is that right, Kat?
Yeah, totally. So it's normally defined as anything quicker than 3 hours is a precipitous labour. So very rapid labour.
So we'll talk about your experience in a bit. But first of all, where do you live and who do you live with?
Okay, so I live in Plymouth, down in the southwest of the country. I live with my partner of 13 years. We have 2 children together. One is 5, Henry. The other is Oliver, who's 2.
Oh, brilliant. So the thing is, with me and Kat, we have known each other for a long time now. I don't even know how long it's been on Instagram, but we just kind of connected maybe last year in 2020, I think around the beginning of the pandemic. And I'm like we just said before, trying to find an old message, realize how much we actually talk to each other on Instagram. We do actually chat a lot. So you are one of my friends, proper Instagram friends, mum friends. And it's been lovely getting to know you. And then I kind of heard this story on one of your posts quite a while ago now. And I remember thinking I'll speak to her about that, because I don't necessarily know many that have got it, or if they have had it, it's like 3 hours, like you say, whereas yours is a very, very different story. So tell us a bit about your sons. How old are they and what little personalities do they have?
Okay, so yeah, I've got a 5-year-old and a 2-year-old. They're both they're just super crazy, I think is the only way I can explain it at the moment.
Yeah.
They're fearless, they're adventurous, they're cheeky, they're nosy, like all such good traits, but when they all come together it can be absolute madness. I'm sure it's the same in your house, Lynn.
Yeah, it is, especially now Ronnie's getting older, and she's starting to grab things and feels oh, hang on, you're getting in my space quite a lot now, you're taking my toys, hang on a second. Like, you can see it already gather momentum. It's going to be a fun 12 months, I tell you. So I've just said about I have to keep looking at the word, I can't pronounce it, precipitous labour. Like I said, I've never heard of it properly before. I don't think many people would use that word for it, 'cause it's quite a tongue twister. But can you explain? Well, sorry. I'm really sorry. Ronnie's got a very poor chest. I'll try and delete this off. Okay. So this happened with your second son. So talk to us a bit about your experience with this. What happened? Did you have a normal-ish birth the first time?
Okay, yes. So the first time round, I had what I'd say, was a pretty normal. In fact, it was a really straightforward birth. With my first. I was pretty in labour for 8 hours. So I'd say is that pretty average? I don't really know what the average is. But yeah, about an 8-hour labour. I managed to have him in birthing pool at the hospital. So I feel very, very fortunate to have had that. So he was a little water baby. So yeah, my first was a really, I guess, like just a really steady process of going through everything on your birthing plan as the stages sort of passed by.
I think that's pretty much on everyone's birthing plan, isn't it? The water, like mine was the first one. I'd love to try and do it in the water. You know, if not, I'd love to just do it in the labour ward and things like that. You always have this birth plan, and near enough, most people would like to do the water birth, wouldn't they?
I think it's quite popular nowadays, and to be fair, definitely recommend it. It's a nice little comfort zone to be in. But yeah, compared to my second, so you asked me my experience with that, didn't you, as well? Yeah, so with my second, I think I started having a contraction. I remember saying to the partner, oh yeah, that's definitely something starting to happen now, like maybe we should start to get really ready, maybe in like the next 24 hours we're going to have another little baby. So you kind of like, after having your first, where you didn't really know the signs at the start of your labour, or necessarily know them or feel them. With my second, it was like a really like, right, yeah, I know this is definitely it happening now. I remember my partner getting like a few things together, making sure we had a bag in the car, making sure we had some drinks and some snacks. And within the space of time it took him to put like a bag in the car, he come back into me like screaming on the sofa. I had about 8 contractions in the first 10 minutes. I think it was.
For me, because I can only go from, anyone can only go from their personal experience. With my second, obviously it was elective, so I didn't go through any of that. But with Theon, my waters had broken. Well, I thought they'd broken on the Thursday. On the Friday morning, I started getting period pains, and that then went on and on all day and all night. And then on the Saturday, it was definitely getting worse, and contractions were starting. So did you not have period pains or like belly pains or aches or anything? Like nothing?
I remember my mum saying that I had been really fidgety that day. So she was just, because I remember my mum was round in the morning and the afternoon for a bit.
Yeah.
And she said that I was just like, I was up and down, like I wasn't in pain, but I wasn't sitting still. Like I was really like, I'll sit down for 5 minutes, get back up, like have a walk around, sit back down.
I think you're a bit like that anyway, aren't you? I don't think you're not really a chilled person anyway in that sense. You're kind of like up and down like me.
Yeah. I'm always on,
yeah.
But no, I don't really remember there being any real like signs of like it being the next level before my contraction started. So literally when the first contraction came, that was when I thought, oh, okay, cool, this is starting now.
Wow, now. Yeah.
But then to have 8 contractions then within the first 10 minutes of the first one happening anyway was a pretty rapid, scary experience for me. So I remember my partner ringing the hospital and telling them, oh yeah, she's had a contraction thing. So like, well, how many has she had? How long has it been going on? And it's like, well, it's only been going on for 10 minutes. They're like, well, you have to wait a bit longer than that. Sort of almost being like, are you crazy? Like, it's only been 10 minutes, mate. Like, chill out. Like, it'll be fine. But then when my partner told them, and I think when they could hear me screaming in the background, that I've had 8 contractions within that 10 minutes, they were like, yeah, okay, maybe come in. And I remember just saying to my partner, yeah, we're going. Like, we have got to go now. Because I think as a mum, I always like to think that you have a slight gut feeling of what's happening, or at least the sort of safety of yourself and the baby. And I knew we had to go. It was like, this pain is getting really high level. I'd say I went into hospital and I was 7 centimeters dilated. I'd say the first like 10 minutes, I felt like I was at that same level as what it took me 8 hours the previous. Is that a good way of explaining it? I think.
Definitely.
It was. I remember my waters broke in the car. My poor little micra was not in a good shape afterwards. Luckily, the hospital was only about a 10-minute drive, if that, from our house.
That's not bad, is it?
And I remember just getting into hospital. I couldn't walk down the stairs. Luckily, this lovely lady came along with a wheelchair. She worked within the postnatal department of the hospital. So I guess she was kind of used to mums, but maybe not mums that were screaming that they were like, give birth. She wheeled me like straight down into the room, and literally I remember one of the nurses asking me if I could get off the wheelchair that I was on, because I was like proper straddling a wheelchair at this point.
You're like, no,
her, I can't. I remember saying I can't because the baby's coming, and with it, literally the baby came
on the wheelchair.
On the wheelchair. So I was like, I'm not going to do it because you'll see my bum, but like,
we don't need the whole
knees up on the wheelchair, bum out, looking really, really elegant.
Well, like, so you're on all fours kind of position.
Yeah, so I was in like quite a good position, I guess, for giving birth. Just didn't expect it to be on a wheelchair. Yeah. My partner's on one side pushing it towards me because a lady's having to support inside me with her fingers to make sure I didn't tear. So I'm going one way, the wheelchair's nearly tipping. Like, I can see why they asked me to get off the wheelchair. It's a health and safety hazard giving birth in a wheelchair.
Well, have you ever tried putting a toddler in a pram that hasn't got a brake on? It's a bit like that, isn't it?
That is literally how it was going. And my partner said at one point he thought I was just going to flip forwards and maybe like bash my head. But yeah, it was just over in a flash. I remember, I don't think I ever felt like the situation was really out of control. It just
is.
happened.
You're just in that zone, aren't you? And you literally put in your life and your baby's life in their hands, and you just don't even think about it, do you? You don't doubt their, ability at all, do you?
Oh no, I was more thinking in my head, like, please someone catch this baby because it is coming now. Like, I hope they're taking me seriously.
Yeah, that's it. It's
coming? Like, please somebody be there to catch the baby. But yeah, so yeah, it was just over in a flash. Over in a flash.
So how common is this type of labour? I mean, is there a medical reason for it? Did it, is there anything that you did that brought it on, or did your parent, mum have it, or anyone in your family have it? Is it something that you can prevent, really?
So I don't really know how common it is. I did try before this call. I did try to find some like facts on it, but I couldn't find like any sort of like statistics on it.
Yeah.
And so I'm not too sure how common it is. However, they do say that if you've had a quick labour previously, you're more likely to have a quicker labour the next time. If you birth a lot of children, so they say if you birth maybe over 3 children, you're more likely to have a quicker labour.
Well, there'd always be that joke, couldn't there, when there's someone who's had over 4 children, they'd go, "Oh well, I'll just cough and it'll come out," because you've had that many.
Yeah, that is. People do say that, isn't it? People do say that. But yeah, there's no. I think it does. There is evidence to suggest that it could run in the family. But I honestly don't think enough's been like researched on it to really pinpoint the reasons.
It just it is hard, isn't it? I mean, I've throughout my life, and I'm 39, so I've heard Facebook or friends and things, someone has said, "Oh, we're delighted to announce we've had our little girl." Very dramatic entrance. We had to go on like a side, pull over on the motorway and give birth to her because she wasn't ready. She was impatient. But then my friend was the same, and she had her baby within like 45 minutes of being in the hospital. But in fairness, her contractions had started a long time before that, but she had read books and she said that she thought, "Oh, this is it, it's starting," and then got in the bath to relax before she went into the hospital. And as she was in the bath, they got worse and she was struggling, and then she finally got herself into the hospital. So it wasn't from... How long was yours, did you say? From when you felt that first, "Oh, this is starting," to when your baby was born? How long was it?
It was roughly 45 minutes.
Yeah, I mean, that is ridiculously quick. Whereas what I'm saying is a lot of people say, "Oh, I was in hospital for half an hour and I gave birth," but you don't know whether they've had the pains all day, they've been trying to ignore it, and things like that. But yours was genuinely, and this is what this precipitous labour is from the minute you feel it to when the baby comes, and that's below the 3-hour threshold. I'll have to have a look at it. Do you know what? I know you were going to write a blog for me, weren't you, and stuff about stuff like this. So we'll have to kind of put heads together and try and find some stats, won't we? And also, if anyone's listening, just message me or Kat and let us know, because we'd love to get other people's experiences on this as well. You don't necessarily have to have given birth on a wheelchair. That's not essential.
No.
So one question I wanted to ask, actually, which isn't on the list: what about your partner? Like, how the hell did he feel about all this? Because you feel the pain, every single contraction, and you're in, like you said, in your head going, "No one's going to take me seriously. This baby's coming. He must have just been stood there in shell shock.
Yeah, like I think I think, to be honest, the whole time it was almost like he was a soldier and I was commander, and I'm just like, just do as I say.
Yeah.
Like, just do as I say, please. I think I've got quite a high pain threshold. So I think the only times where, my partner has seen me in pain and I've really been outspoken about it is when I've been pregnant. But I think me and my partner have been together for 13 years now. So when Oliver was born, it would have been 11 years we've been together. So I think he could just see in my face and the voice.
Yeah.
It was like, yeah, she's being like really serious with me. And I think as well, the difference between how I was in such a short space of time. So I remember I was just sat on the sofa chilling out. I told him I'd had a contraction. He literally walked out the front door to put something in the car. And by the time he walked back, I was like pants down. Like I had pulled my pants down already because I was just like, oh my God, this is really like this is happening. And like, you know, I was literally in the giving birth position in the time it took him to come back in. So I think
and you're like, just look at me, look at this.
Like, for him to see all that, I think, yeah, it was he does say to me like it was all shock. He was just like everything was just running on adrenaline. He was just like
it is, isn't it?
But yeah, like I think he did great. Like he did. I should give him like some more credit for that whole experience actually, because he listened to me, like, and I think that's all like your birthing partner can do, isn't it? No matter who it is, like just listen and be like, yeah, okay, like, okay, yeah, we'll just do what you say now. I think as well, that's another thing as well, isn't it? You write these things down in your birthing plan, but when you're actually in the moment, that could all change.
Oh,
so
absolutely.
To have somebody there that would be like, yeah, I'm listening to you now. Like, I know you said that you didn't necessarily want that then, but I'm gonna listen to you now. Like,
that's it.
But yeah, I think a bonus for him as well. This the second time round was because of how quickly it all happened. When the baby was here, and then I remember the midwife saying, "Oh, you know, do you want to hold your baby?" I was just still in. I hadn't even moved yet off the wheelchair, so I was like, "No, give him to my partner. Like, give the baby to my partner." So I think my partner must have been in quite shocked with that as well, having like literally, oh, okay, now I've like first sort of hugs with the baby. Like it was lovely. It was lovely, but it was such a over in a flash moment. So I think both of us really.
Yeah, definitely. I was just wondering, how, you know, because you don't really think about it, how you're just lucky he was at home that day.
Oh yeah.
Imagine if he worked half an hour away and you said, "Oh, can you come back?" Because
he potentially does. Like he can't. Like yeah.
What would you'd always just have to have phoned an ambulance, wouldn't you? And that wouldn't have been
I think if I was at home by myself at that point, especially because I'm pretty sure actually no, Henry had gone off with my sister. It was such a weird coincidence that Henry had gone off for the evening for a sleepover with my sister, and Oliver came that evening.
Yeah.
So I didn't have Oliver there, but yeah, I would have been like totally by myself.
Yeah.
But I would have just rung for an ambulance or strangely enough, I have a retired midwife that lives over the road from me. So I think I would have like tried to crawl over the road to hers and got her to help out maybe.
I remember there was a girl.
You do what you need to do, don't you?
Yeah, of course. There was this girl, she was 17. So her like, oh my God, her kid would be like 22 now. And I remember just reading in the papers, I went to school with her and she, something similar to yourself, and she'd phoned 999. And I think it was that quick that they helped her to give birth to her own child.
Yeah.
And then as soon as the baby was born, her mum had come through the living room, the front door, because obviously she'd phoned her and said, Mum, please hurry up. And it was too late. She'd given birth to her own baby. I mean, it's unbelievable, really, isn't it? Wow.
Yeah.
So, I had the longest labour with Fionn. I think it was touching 72 hours from my hindwaters breaking to her coming out via C-section, emergency C-section. I was so drained by the end of that. I felt robbed of the experience. And I was in a bit of a state of shock, I think, for a long time after. And I suppose having such a quick labour, you must have kind of similar emotions attached to that birth, in the sense that I was so tired that it's a bit of a blur. And I couldn't tell you what happened in those 72 hours because I was in and out of sleep. Sorry, everybody that's listening, that's Ronnie. I was in and out of sleep, and then she came. It was quite, dramatic entrance. And I looked back and I thought, I can't remember much. And I was a bit annoyed by that because I really wanted to embrace it all. So do you feel the same having such a short labour?
Yeah, I do. And it's quite strange, isn't it? How like our experiences are almost quite opposite. But yeah, definitely the same feeling of shock. To be fair, I think if anybody can say that they've given birth and it's not been a shock, Even I guess even if you're induced, even if you have a C-section, even if you have all these different ways of I think it's a massive shock on your body, isn't it? And your mindset as well. And yeah, definitely felt robbed of the experience. I think for me, I just felt robbed because at no point could I even take some sort of control over the situation.
No.
Right, I know I need to go to hospital now. Let's give birth. Cool, done. There was no sort of thinking time, I think. So it made it for me, that's what's made it, I think my words out now, that's what made it all a blur.
Yeah, absolutely. It's you think a lot of people say, oh, you had quick labour, how lovely, which we're going to talk about that in a bit. It's not always the case, is it? Right, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a little break. I'm going to make another coffee. I'm going to try and put Ronnie down in the bed and see if she falls asleep this time. And then I'll be back in 2 minutes. Okie dokie. Thanks, Kat. Hi, and welcome back. So you'll be pleased to know that my Ronnie is fast asleep in bed just there. So that's good. That worked. So now it is just me, myself, and I. So we'll go on to the next question. How did having this experience affect your mental health after you came home? You wrote on your Instagram account that you were struggling with depression. Is this something you struggled with before this experience, or was the trauma of this type of birth what brought on your mental health to decline?
See, I do feel like it was this particular experience that sort of started the spiral, is what I'm going to say. And because I don't think it sort of was it happened overnight thing for me. I think the shock of the experience, the fact that I remember having lots of people say to me, like, well, I think you mentioned it earlier on, like, oh, I wish I had a quick birth. Oh, you're so lucky that happened, like, oh, that must have been easy, or that must have been like great that it was quick. And I know none of these comments were meant to,
they're just
like any comment to make, isn't it? Do you know what I mean? But I think inside I was thinking to myself, sometimes I'd be like, well, yeah, it was amazing. Yeah, I did really good. Like, I was really strong. I listened to my body. My body must have been good because I managed to do that, and I had a few stitches, but do you know what I mean? I wasn't in a bad physical shape afterwards. And I remember just thinking in my head, like, other days I'd be thinking to myself, well, what the hell even happened there? Like, I can't even say to people what it was like, or what I felt like, because I can't even bloody remember it now. Because I remember just, oh, that was a strong, like, back pain. Oh, there's the baby. Do you know what I mean? Because it was almost my memories of it sometimes. And I think for me, then thinking, well, do I remember holding Oliver after I gave birth to him? Do I remember latching him onto my breast? Do I remember? And you go through all these things in your head, like, I don't really remember that. Like, there's photos of me holding him. There's photos of me breastfeeding him. I was really, really fortunate with that. But even those memories are a blur. Like, if my partner hadn't took photographs of those moments, I honestly don't think I would remember them.
I think anyone that's had trauma is trauma, I suppose, isn't it?
It is a trauma. It definitely is.
Traumatic birth. However, it comes quickly or slowly, or by C-section, or naturally, or whatever. I think a lot of it is I think mothers especially go into fight or flight mode. They call that, like, what do they call it, the tiger thing, where you either fight or you protect yourself. And I remember I was telling a story, and how when Fionn came out and she wasn't breathing, and she was in, all the, like, specialists were resuscitating her, and I said, oh, all I could see were the legs. And Phil was like, Lynn, you didn't even look at her. And I said, yes, I did. And he says, you didn't. You wouldn't take your eyes off me the whole time. And you just kept saying, Phil, 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 as if to say, tell me something good, I can't look.
Yeah.
And I said, I obviously just switched off. I obviously just, I couldn't look. And in my head, my romantic side of it is making me go, oh yeah, and I looked and I could see her little legs and they were working really hard. He says, I don't know. He says, I think you've heard me tell my story and somehow embedded that into your memory, because he says you didn't look. He says it was like you couldn't bear to look. And I thought, yeah, maybe that's what it is. You know, you just fight or flight. And I don't think, I knew I couldn't look. So I just, to protect myself as well, I just looked away. And I think that's what you're saying. You just don't remember things because one, it's too quick. Two, you're in shock because this wasn't supposed to happen. This wasn't in your birth plan. What the hell? Like, hang on, that's very quick. You know, it's your brain can only absorb, I mean, it can absorb every single thing you're seeing, I know, but for you to remember those things, it's a different, you know, process completely.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's, I think, any, even if your birth goes absolutely smoothly, it's still such a big trauma to your body.
Of course, yeah.
Like, yeah, it's absolutely, yeah, it's absolutely crazy. I think I've only recently, though, in the last maybe year, so Oliver's 2 now, and I think maybe in the last year since I started to sort of focus on me more during the first lockdown, that's when I first really started to notice, oh yeah, this has had an effect on me.
Mm.
Because it's every time that, like, maybe Oliver's really hard to deal with, you know, he's having a really bad day, he's tantruming, he's crying, he's screaming. And with Henry, I sort of look back and I think to myself, oh yeah, but remember when it was like this, and when he was, you know, when this happened, when he was born, and you can kind of like get yourself out of those intrusive thoughts, isn't it?
Yeah.
Intrusive thoughts.
Oh, I get loads of them.
And I think with Oliver, that's my sort of main mental health struggle, is the intrusive thoughts. Me going, well, this kid's really annoying me, and you know what? I can't even remember when he was bloody born. Like, what am I even doing? Like, what kind of mum am I? Like, and all these intrusive thoughts then start to creep in because I'm like, well, you can't remember his birth. And it's hard, isn't it? That is exactly how my brain clicks. And I know it's such a stupid question to ask myself. And does it matter if some days I cannot remember his birth?
No, I think
I'm here. He's here. He was healthy.
Yeah, I live in the present day.
But it plays, doesn't it? It plays in your head.
And it's us, and that's part of the mental health side of things. For me, I don't feel like that so much, but when Fionn is playing up and tantrums and not listening, and I'm just having a really tough day with her because she's very strong-willed and fiery, which is great, like her mum, but I just don't want her to be like that all the time. I just get, my trigger is when she plays up when I'm with friends and stuff, and it's a bit of a scene in public, and I panic about what people think of me, you know, and how I discipline her or how I speak to her. And that's my anxiety when I go out, is people watching how I deal with my child. And I shouldn't really give a toss, to be honest, but I do. But what triggers me off and sets me off crying is, for me, I had such a beautiful pregnancy with Fionn, and then the birth was so horrific, and then I just think, oh, I see all these other toddlers and the mums are having such a lovely time, and they're walking by them on the pavement and they're listening to the mums, and they're doing this on Instagram, and I know I shouldn't do that. I know that Instagram versus reality is two different things. I know, but you can't help yourself sometimes. And I just think, oh God, none of this is how I expected it. I expected my child to be, listen to this, well-behaved, disciplined, enthusiastic about what I tell them and stuff, but it doesn't work like that, does it? And I think that's the thing. I think, God, you know, this has been so hard. The whole thing's been hard. Like, when does it get easier? And then I speak to other mums like yourself and everyone on here, and I think, get a grip, Lynn. You're a mum. This is your life, and it's the hardest job in the world. So
it is the hardest job in the world. Give ourselves more credit. Like, managed to create them. Like, we're still keeping them alive.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. So did you get any support afterwards? Like, how long were you in hospital for?
So Oliver was born at about 5 to 9 in the evening. I remember being back home and in my own bed by 2 a.m.
What?
So like, what's that? How many hours is that? Like
5 hours.
5 hours later, I was at home. But that was my personal choice. I had it with Henry as well. So with Henry, I gave birth to him at about 6:15 in the evening, and I was home by about midnight. I don't like hospitals.
No, I get that. I get that with we were told that might be an option. But when you've had such a fast birth, I can't believe they didn't keep you in overnight. And
yeah, I mean, that may be more questions could have been asked. Maybe they were asked.
Yeah, you just don't
And
remember.
maybe in the blur of everything, I was like,
Yeah.
yeah, like this is all
Well,
great,
it's
like
fine.
yeah. Because for me, my adrenaline, I was still, I was expecting like an 8-hour labor.
Yeah.
So I'm just like, I've got spare energy. Like when
Yeah.
even after under the shock as well.
Yeah.
But I don't recall being offered support at the time. I mean, you get your after sort of like care, don't you? Whether you go for like the tick sheet
Yeah.
before you can get sent home. They give you all the booklets, don't they, with like lots of information on various different things, let alone the signs of like baby blues and
Yeah.
postnatal depression. Like you get like there's a whole range of information, isn't it, given to you? And even the health visitor coming round like after they're born, I think with our second, you don't see them as often as what you would with your first.
No,
I'm
not at all.
pretty sure that was the case with us anyway. So maybe I just never felt like I either one had the opportunity to speak about my
Yeah.
feelings. I think, and then as well a mixture of me not thinking that they're really that much of an issue,
Yeah.
because we all undermine our own problems, don't we? We all think to ourselves, well, our problems are either the biggest thing in the world and we're crying and screaming out for help, or we think to ourselves our problems don't really matter.
Everyone's
You
just
kind
gonna
of go
think
one of two
whatever.
ways with them, don't you? Do you know what I
Yeah.
mean? So I think part of it was I didn't really get the opportunity to speak out, and the other part was I didn't want to. I wasn't in a place that I was ready to
Yeah.
speak out maybe at that point in
And I
time.
think sometimes that's the thing. Like I'm just about to say now, how have you managed to deal with this trauma personally? For me, I don't know. I was in hospital. I had sepsis afterwards. I was just so poorly, and it was like a week, and I just wanted to get home with my baby. And I got home, and then it was like the full-on visitors for the next week. And then Phil went back to work, so then I was trying to figure out how I was going to do this on my own with the baby, and then it was summer, so that helped and got on. And then the winter came, and I was like, oh great, she was like Ronnie's age now, getting things ready for going to play, play dates, and then I went back to work. And then I worked for a year, and then I got pregnant again a year and a half later. And yeah, it was fine. And then it was then when I had Ronnie, the 20-week scan, and they said there might be something wrong. That's when it all came back to me. It was like I've been keeping myself so busy up until that point, and the trauma of what had happened actually started coming back, and I like flashbacks and like the stress. Like my daughter said to me, and my sister said to me the other day, I can't believe how relaxed a baby Ronnie is, because you were so stressed out. I've never ever known anyone to be so stressed out during a pregnancy. And I was like, I know. It really triggered it off. And I found just talking to people, I spoke to the people who had the notes about the birth, and they went through it all bit by bit, which was great. Talking to Phil about his side versions of the story, speaking out all the time. I'm that kind of person that needs to go blah, 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 and then let people give me advice and talk to me about it. How did you deal with it? Like when you say like a year later, I know you have told me how you've done this, but if you just explain here like, what you did personally.
Yeah. So I think I started looking for support after like a year. I just think I got to the stage where I was just like, well, you're not really doing anything about these thoughts,
No.
are you, Kat? And it gets to the point where you're like, well, come on, we've got to do something because nothing's changing. I mean, I went to the doctors, but it wasn't a place I felt comfortable really.
Do you know what
I
they
know I
say?
could talk to my
What would
doctor
you
about
like us to
anything.
do? Do you want tablets, counselling, or something else? And that's the only option.
Yeah,
You
that's
go,
it. I
"Well,
didn't really feel. I just didn't feel like it was for me. And I remember going to some mum groups,
yeah,
some postnatal depression specific mum groups as well. Do you know what I mean? Not just like stay in place. But they didn't. If I'm being really honest, and it's hard, isn't it? Because everybody's brain works differently. But they made me feel worse. Like they made me feel
yeah,
worse. I don't know what it was. It was just like, oh, everyone's really struggling here, aren't they? Like,
yeah,
Jesus Christ. Like, um, I, it's hard, isn't it? Maybe I just couldn't find connections with the people that were there. but strangely enough, I found my release as well through like social media. I decided as well at the start of lockdown that alongside looking after my mental health, I'd look after like my body more as well. So I kind of gone on a bit of a health journey with like well-being and self-care. It's massively helped. I think you've got to give yourself a chance with depression. You've got to make sure that you're fueling yourself right, showing yourself kindness, letting yourself have time to relax. And those are all the things that I started doing. So in and around my whole Instagram page where I share what I've been up to, I also connect with others. And like you, they've given me so much advice. Some of that I really embrace and I take it on and I try things out. Other things I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, we'll note that down, but it's not really my thing.
Yeah,
But
that's it. And we were just saying that before, weren't we?
Yeah, it's just great to get like a big roundup of advice from so many people. I've started doing meditation. That's something I never thought I would do like a couple of years ago, but that alone has probably been more beneficial to me than going to the doctors or going to one of those groups.
And that's because it's just, yeah, you're quite spiritual in that sense, aren't you? I'm not sure if it'd be something for me. What I found is the gyms have opened, so I'm going swimming, I'm going spinning, I'm going to the gym while Ronnie's in the crash, and it just gives me that hour, and that's really helping me. But I think everyone's got to find what they want to do, and that's the thing about, like you said, about talking to different mums. I might take like I've done it myself, like you said about meditation. I don't really meditate, but if I'm having a moment, I'll go and sit outside, and Phil go, "Are you going?" And I'm like, just gonna go and have 5 minutes, and I'll just sit out there and I'll try my best to just blank my brain and just be in the sun and not think of anything. It does help. So you take snippets of what other people do, don't you?
Definitely, yeah. And it is just a big game of trial and error sometimes, isn't it?
Absolutely.
And what worked last month might not necessarily work this month. I'm just in such a better mood if I get a good night's sleep. Now, sometimes I
swear by a good night's sleep.
I will actively try and make sure I get a good night's sleep. So I'll try and get into a really good routine with the kids, get them to bed on time. Never really happens, but we try. I'll put some nice sleep music on. So I'll turn off my phone like half an hour before bed. I'll make sure I don't watch any TV half an hour before bed, so my mind switches down. It's just putting it all into practice, isn't it, to make you feel better, and that in itself has probably helped me more than going to the doctors and getting.
I'll be completely
overload of just.
Yeah, a few weeks ago, when I was just saying to you before, when I wasn't recording, a few weeks ago, I phoned up the doctor and said, I don't feel right in my head. Like, I was really struggling to, balance, like juggle everything. And literally said, they were like, okay. And they didn't know what to say, because I was kind of saying, I feel depressed. Well, I know, I just feel sad. I was just blurting everything out because I think I just felt a bit overwhelmed with everything at the time. And they'd said, okay, well, what do you want then? Do you want tablets, medication? Do you want counselling, or do you want something else? Like, what else? Self-care, like website referrals? And I was like, is that all you're offering? Like, is there nothing like yoga? Like, just recommend all these different things that don't include, because I don't think I need to speak to a counsellor. I don't think I need medication. Like you said, I think talking to people helps. I think definitely talking to people.
It's like an outlet, isn't it?
Yeah, and like last night,
your outlet.
Yeah, and last night, I was like, oh, I'm going to do the food shopping tonight. And Phil's like, why? And I said, because Ronnie's not been well today, and I've not been able to get out. And he says, oh, well, no. He says, do it tomorrow. He says, we're going to have a film night tonight. And that was really nice, because that was another part, is that you lose yourself as mum and dad sometimes, don't you? You're not, boyfriend and girlfriend, or wife and husband, or whatever. And I think that's important as well. But I think talking to the dads about stuff as well, because I always forget that Phil's been there through the 2 births with me, like your partner has with the last one. They were through it as well, didn't they?
Yeah, definitely.
Bless them.
I think for the men as well, it's hard I think it's even harder as well for them to speak up if there's a worry.
Yeah.
So I know for the fact that my partner sometimes, I know in the past he has said to me like, oh, I didn't really think I'd bring it up because I didn't want to make you feel bad.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it's like, well, no, if you're noticing I'm getting more irritable, if you're noticing I'm more teary,
yeah.
If you'll notice it, then it's not even like saying something like, oh, I've noticed you've been getting a bit more angry recently. Just tell me to bugger off and have a walk around the block. Like, just tell me to go and have a shower. Don't say, would you like one?
Yeah, because you're going to say yes.
Because us mums, we hardly ever prioritize ourselves, and we find it hard to. Like, I'll be honest, I find it hard to prioritize myself. If my partner asks me if I would like a shower, and the kids are running around like mad things and screaming and shouting, and they need feeding, I'm probably going to say no.
I'll just say no, wait till they go to bed.
Prioritize them.
Yeah.
Whereas if he tells me, Kat, go and have a shower, I'll be like, okay, yeah, I'll go and have a shower. Like, and I know that sounds really ridiculous. Like, my partner isn't a dictator. Like, I don't listen to everything he says and asks me to do. But does that make sense? Do you know what I mean? Like, if I'm it's nice that if he notices that I'm starting to show these emotions, that he's just like, no, do you know what? I'm not taking no for an answer. Go and look after your bloody self.
Go and do it. Yeah. So, I'll have to finish off this now because I've got to get back to pick up my other one now. For any mums who've experienced a precipitous labour, what advice would you give them with regards to self-care after the event? So, like you said, look at the ways of doing it. I suppose meditation, going online.
Yeah, so I think maybe try and write down your experience, record your experience on like your phone. Just speak into your phone. Like, you can record your voice on your phone. There's so many apps nowadays where you can just record your voice, even if you never listen to it back. Even if you rip that bit of paper up in the morning and chuck it away.
Yeah, like write it down if you want to write it down.
Just write things down. Just get everything off your chest. Remember that every birthing experience is traumatic, and it's okay to need like support, to not feel ashamed of asking for support. Like we were just saying, tell your partner how you're feeling.
Yeah.
And also, I think one of the issues we haven't brushed upon, and I will just do really quickly because I know you've got to head off soon, is be aware of issues with attachment when it comes to precipitous labour. So a lot of people find that you might not have a closer bond as you might have thought straight away with the child because of how quickly it's all happened. I know that this is something that they're looking into more with precipitous labour, as like a kind of I want to say the word symptom, but that doesn't quite sound right. But something to be aware that comes up quite often when people speak about their experiences is they haven't gained that bond that they would have during a longer process.
Yeah, so maybe like speak to the health visitor about that and just say, look, I'm just a bit worried because this happened. Can you give me some advice just in case it happens? What should I look out for? Is there anything I can do? Yeah, it's really good. Actually, speak to the health visitor or midwife especially.
Yeah, or even just let somebody know, isn't it? So they can be like, oh right, she said to me that she was struggling with like her bond. Right, let's go out for the day. Go to the petting zoo. I don't know.
Go to the zoo. Go swimming.
Like, let's go and do something together.
Yeah.
Like, that keeps your brain active. You don't have to worry about that bond because you're just doing something with them.
Yeah.
You know what I mean, so
as long as you're cuddling them, newborn babies especially, all they just want is cuddles. That's that's all they need. Even at this age, what's she now, 8 months? She just wants to know I'm there. As soon as she sees I'm there, she relaxes. It's really weird. It's just, they've got that bond, don't they? Well, thanks ever so much for agreeing to be my guest, Kat. If you'd like to contact Kat and ask any questions about this topic, then please do. So her Instagram account is That Active Mum. If you look on my page, I'm following her and she's following me as well. And she shares a lot of tips about health and well-being, and also has her own blog as well now, I believe. And you're doing lots and lots, Kat, aren't you? So yeah, follow Kat and see what she's up to.
Squeeze things in. Thank you, honey.
No problem. Thanks very much for everyone for listening, and we'll speak soon. Bye-bye.